Well, and good evening to each and every one of you. We are about 900 strong on the line tonight. We are understanding that some folks are unable to get through. We'll be posting a live link to this here tomorrow. As soon as we get the recording, you'll be able to listen to that live link here tomorrow on Facebook and through the counties. I want to say welcome and thank you all for joining our telephone town hall on wildfire preparedness. My name is Mike McGuire, and I'm honored to work with you as senator here in Lake and Mendocino counties, and we so appreciate that you're with us this evening. Let's be honest, there are very few regions in this state that have been as deeply impacted by wildfire than Lake and Mendocino County. The memories of the Valley Fire and the Redwood Complex Fire, they're still raw. And while our region has become better prepared and resources across the Golden State, they're now more plentiful, we know that there's much more work ahead of us. Over the last few years, tens of thousands of Californians have lost their homes in devastating wildfires. Because of this, we have become much better prepared for emergencies and fire prevention. And emergency preparedness and fire prevention has now become part of our lives. And though we're living through a pandemic, we must keep looking forward, preparing for the wildfire season in front of us. California is investing record resources into wildfire response and prevention, despite the economic fallout from the pandemic. 493 full-time additional CAL FIRE firefighters will be hired between 2019 and 2025. This will take the state to the highest level of CAL FIRE staffing in our history. We're also purchasing 12 new Black Hawk night fighting helicopters. New bulldozer teams have been hired, and we're bringing in 7 new C-130 cargo planes from the Coast Guard, and they're going to become CAL FIRE's largest fire bombers in the sky. That said, we know there's much more work ahead. Tonight, we have an all-star panel with you and for all of us. You're going to hear from CAL FIRE Mendocino Unit Chief George Gonzalez and Shauna Jones, the CAL FIRE Sonoma Lake Napa Unit Chief. The chiefs are going to talk about fire preparedness, resources for homeowners, vegetation management, and firefighting in the era of the coronavirus. We are also grateful to have with us Mendocino County Sheriff Matt Kendall and Lake County Sheriff Brian Martin. They're going to brief us on how warning capabilities have changed over the last 5 years, how evacuations will be different with the coronavirus, and they're going to share best practices for preparedness. Finally, we're going to have PG&E's Director of Wildfire Safety Programs and Wildfire Plans, Matt Pender, with us this evening. Matt's going to discuss what PG&E has learned since last year, what type of modernization, hardening, and vegetation management and microgrid projects have been advanced in the 2 counties, and he's going to give us his best estimate on how 2020 looks for Mendocino and Lake counties regarding power shutoffs. All right, it's now time to get into our Lake and Mendocino County Fire Preparedness Town Hall. We're now going to turn the floor over to the Sonoma, Lake, Napa Unit Chief, Chief Jones, for a full report. Chief Jones, thank you for your incredible work. You have 3 minutes. We'll give you a 30-second prompt, and we so appreciate you being with us tonight. The floor is yours, Chief.
Thank you so much, Senator McGuire, for this opportunity to speak on wildfire preparedness. And to my partners on the call, thank you as well. The state has seen many years of drought, and since the Valley Fire, which burned more than 76,000 acres and damaged or destroyed approximately 2,000 structures, we continue to see large and more damaging fires than ever before. Fueled by drought, we have an unprecedented buildup of dry vegetation and extreme weather conditions, which the public may know as red flag warning days, become the perfect recipe for fires which burn hotter, last longer, and require more personnel and equipment to contain. Since the Valley Fire of 2015, Mendocino and Lake County experienced the largest fire on record in California history, and that was the Mendocino complex in 2018 at 459,000 acres. Fire season in all parts of California is starting earlier and ending later in the year. Basically, fire season is not a season. Truly, it's a year-round, and homeowners need to be prepared. So fires aren't getting smaller. They are larger than ever before, not because we're not sending enough equipment, but because vegetation after years of drought and under the right weather conditions is ready to burn. And we've seen that with such force and velocity that personnel and equipment who are fighting these fires are truly unable to stop the fire front without extremely dangerous rates of spread. So lessons learned from the Valley Fire: years of vegetation buildup cannot be removed or mitigated overnight. And CAL FIRE is committed to a very strong, robust vegetation treatment plan to reduce vegetation throughout the state. To do this, CAL FIRE and all agencies working together in partnership with the community on vegetation management is a full-time job on all fire fronts. Grants are more readily available to organized groups to complete vegetation management projects, and this has truly been helpful because as an agency, we cannot do this by ourselves. Really, it's going to take the whole community to do their part to help us help the community to reduce the buildup of dead and decadent vegetation, to create and maintain the fuel breaks in and around our communities. We learned that fires start any time of the day. We knew this before, but it's important to stress that the public needs to know two ways out. Escape routes should be practiced with your family members. In the dead of the night, in an emergency, should you be notified that you need to evacuate, that should not be the first time that you have traveled on a road to escape a fire in your community. Be prepared to evacuate quickly when requested to do so. Have a go bag. This includes important papers, medications, pet food if you have pets. Don't forget your pets. Snacks, a change of clothes, and now with COVID, please include a mask as well. Make sure your car's fuel and your cell phone is charged. CAL FIRE has a robust fleet of equipment and personnel, but the reality is, even with the cooperation of our local government partners during a wildfire, there may not be enough equipment available to place an engine in every driveway to protect your home. The public needs to do their part to prepare year-round. In reality, there is no single solution to fix this problem. We need a holistic approach to fire prevention. So home hardening is a key component to being prepared. So what can you do as a homeowner to harden your home for the fire season? Most homes burn from ember casts carried by winds ahead of the fire front. How do you protect your home from those ember showers? A lot of work can be done by the homeowner prepare for fire season, which doesn't cost a lot of money, only time and your effort. Clean your gutters. Trim your trees away from buildings. Remove combustibles away from your home. Weeds, dead brush, firewood. Stack that near your home, and any structures on your property need to be clear of these items. If you're going to weed around your property, please pay attention to the weather on windy days or during red flag warning days. Please do not operate equipment or anything that could potentially create a spark. On cool days, consider closing or doing your weeding early and having a water source nearby. If you have wood shingles, you should strongly consider changing to a more non-combustible roofing material as well. In the event of wildfire or embers are showered on your roof, there's less of a chance you can burn. What homeowners can do to protect their neighborhoods from wildfire. Education, CAL FIRE is very big on education, and so for the public, this is something that is really important. Our approach is really conducting defensible space inspections. So crews from CAL FIRE are out in the counties conducting these inspections for homeowners to educate the homeowners on the importance of clearing dead vegetation and combustible materials within 5, 30, and 100 feet of your home. Some things you can consider: joining a neighborhood community group, such as a Fire Safe Council, or working with an HOA to help rally the community together to help with vegetation management. Remember, fire season is really a year-round event. In order for us to protect you, we need your help. I strongly encourage those listening tonight to visit readyforwildfire.org, which is a great resource for homeowners to help prepare their home for wildfires. I'd like to close with thanking Senator McGuire for the option to speak tonight, and I look forward to any questions. Thank you.
Chief Jones, thank you so much for joining us. Chief has been with us through thick and thin, through some of the worst wildland fires in our state's history, and I want to take a moment to say thank you to her and her team for all of her hard work. We are now approaching over 1,000 strong tonight on the phone, and again, we want to apologize. Many tried to get in. We'll be posting a recording on our Facebook and through the sheriff's here tomorrow. We're now going to be turning the floor over to Chief Gonzalez. Chief Gonzalez is the CAL FIRE Mendocino Unit Chief. Chief, we are so appreciative of your time this evening. The floor is yours for your full briefing. You have 3 minutes. Good evening, Chief.
Thank you to Senator, and thank you, everybody. My name is George Gonzalez, CAL FIRE Unit Chief for the Mendocino Unit. I want to take a moment to thank everybody that's on the line and taking proactive measures to work with us, work with the Senator, work with the sheriffs, to be proactive and get information prior to a wildfire occurring. CAL FIRE has implemented many new vegetation management program processes, grants, and funding. Every CAL FIRE unit has a VMP officer, and vegetation management projects are occurring, such as the Rivieras in Lake County or the West Side Fuel Project in Ukiah. Vegetation management programs can be a shaded fuel break or an actual fire scratch line where the vegetation has been brought down to bare earth. These are just some of them. There's also chipping programs. There's also mechanical programs. Everybody has a chance to get some of these grants and or to participate in the VMP process. You could also do a lot of the work yourself around your home, such as Chief Jones mentioned earlier in the defensible spacing program as well. Always have at least 2 escape routes. Look for fire-wise communities. This will enhance and help you out with insurance, cheaper costs. You can also join local fire safe councils, and possibly within the councils you'll have community chipping programs and or community exercises regarding to exit drills or priority areas where you live, where you could conduct vegetation management products. Within Lake counties and Mendocino counties over the past few years, as Chief Jones stated and Senator McGuire, we've had the largest disasters in California that have taken fuel, homes, lives, property, and it's time for us to start doing something about it. If we all take our part and be proactive, having escape routes, early evacuations, vegetation management projects, all these parts will consolidate and will help us be successful as California residents. The evacuations have changed a little bit. We now have statewide common communications with the verbiage, so now it's standardized terminology. You'll hear an evacuation warning, which is a life safety, means to exit immediately, have your go bag. You'll hear evacuation order, which is now considered a pre-warning to the leaving immediately, and you're also going to hear a shelter in place. These are all the new verbiage that everybody's going to be using. When you hear a shelter in place, when you hear evacuation order or evacuation warning, these are your hints. These are your pre-indicators. If it's a warning, start the process. Get your livestock together. Get your exit plans together. Get your family. Get your go bag and start to exit. You will never, ever go wrong if you practice it. Even if you have to turn around a few miles down the road and the fire is contained, at least you've practiced. Obviously, with evacuation order, that means to leave immediately, leave the area, and this is lawfully closed to the public at this point in time.
About 30 seconds.
This is a life safety issue. There's no time to stand around. We're going to be seeing more evacuation centers. We're going to be seeing increased social distancing, increased base camps on the fire side, extreme hygiene practices, smaller group gatherings, and we'll be feeding in shifts and virtual briefings at fires and and self-monitoring. And the last thing I'd like to say is 95% of all unwanted fires are human caused. Let's all join tonight and help each other out and stop this 95 percentile. Thank you.
Chief Gonzalez, thank you so much. Chief Gonzalez is the Mendocino Unit Chief for CAL FIRE. We are grateful for his work. Ladies and gentlemen, we are getting dozens of questions in, over 1,000 strong on the town hall now. If you'd like to submit a question or a comment, senator.mcguire@senate.ca senate.gov, senator.mcguire@senate.ca.gov. Get your questions and comments in now. We'll be getting to them shortly. We're now going to be turning the floor over to our two hardworking sheriffs on the line. We're going to start with the new sheriff in Mendocino County. We're grateful that Matt Kendall is on the line. He may be new to the sheriff's position, but he's a longtime veteran in the department. Sheriff Kendall, thank you so much for joining. The floor is yours. You have 3 minutes for your briefing.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on this topic and for taking the time to listen. In Lake and Mendocino counties, we've got a lot of work to do, but if we work together, we can all shoulder the load. We need the public's help to carry a lot of this weight. We're rapidly learning how dynamic disasters can be and the importance of the issuing and the early warnings as soon as possible. However, we have to keep in mind that the facts have to be accurate. Accuracy is the key in warning. This makes it very difficult to assess a situation and communicate that into an alert and warning system to get it out to the public rapidly. The public has to understand that this isn't an instantaneous process, so remain aware of your surroundings during fire weather. Know your neighbors and have their contact information. The most rapid responses always seem to be social media with Facebook and Twitter. We're using the IPAWS system, the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. This warning system has been improved at the state and federal levels. IPAWS can now be limited to certain areas instead of the entire county. It can be dialed down to a smaller area, and we can use it much more frequently than what we have in the past. We also use Nixle and Everbridge. These are hardline notification systems, but they can also send out text and emails as well as telephone calls. People can register multiple addresses on these systems also. We don't put non-emergency communications on the Nixle alerts or the other alerts because we found that this has caused people to turn them off and stop using them. We're finishing the county-wide evac plan with CAL FIRE, the fire districts, and the Office of Emergency Services. We're all using common evacuation terms, as Chief Gonzalez mentioned. All agencies will use the terms evacuation warning and evacuation order in order to minimize confusion amongst our residents. So I would encourage everyone in Mendocino County to go to the Sheriff's Office website, go to the Mendo Alerts tab, and please sign up. Knowing the essential items in your home, having a good communication plan with your children and relatives, and knowing where you're going to be going during these times of a disaster is going to help us a lot. If you feel you're in danger, don't wait to be told to leave. Just go. With the coronavirus that's going on, it's going to be essential for all of our residents to identify locations where they might be able to go prior to the potential evacuations. Evacuations themselves will not significantly change, but sheltering and mass transportation will be extremely challenging due to the need of social distance. The state as a whole will have limited capacity, and we need our residents to be prepared more right now than ever. We've worked closely with the state, the American Red Cross, our care and shelter teams, and local partners to assist shelter sites, the capabilities and alternate solutions to mass sheltering. Our goal will be to limit the congregation in sheltering wherever we can to limit the spread of COVID-19. The evacuations that we've seen in the past, although I think that they were pretty good, I think that we've gotten a lot better with a lot of the fire safe councils and a lot of practice. As Chief Gonzalez mentioned, there's nothing wrong with practicing. It's always going to make perfect. We have, some challenges in Mendocino County. A lot of it has to do with geography, and we certainly have a lot of work to get done. However, I can't applaud the state and the county enough for the sheltered fuel breaks, for the fuel mitigation, and the things that we're doing as preventative measures right now. Every one of those preventative measures can put us in a much better place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheriff. We're grateful. That's Sheriff Kendall from Mendocino County. And now we're going to be turning the floor over to Sheriff Martin. Sheriff Martin has been in office now for 5.5 years and has seen some of the worst wildfires in our state's history, and is helping lead the county through each of those disasters. Sheriff Martin, we're grateful for your work. We're happy you're on with us, and we welcome you to the Fire Preparedness Town Hall. You have three minutes.
Thank you, Senator McGuire. I got to tell you, this town hall is very timely as we come into fire season. As Chief Jones mentioned earlier, fire season is longer. It starts earlier and it goes later. But just today in Lake County, we had two very concerning fires that broke out within minutes of each other. So this is a real thing for all of us that live here in the North State, something we've dealt with and we're going to continue to deal with for the foreseeable future. So we've learned a lot since the fire season of 2015 when Lake County was hit by the Rocky, Jerusalem, and Valley fires. And some of the big things that we've learned some lessons on are emergency notification systems that we had in place were wholly insufficient at that time. So we've really taken the initiative in implementing the IPAWS, the Integrated Public Alert Warning System that's available through FEMA, wireless emergency alerts. We lean heavily on our social media and our local mass notification systems through Everbridge and Nixle, which seem to be the standard throughout law enforcement. We're going to continue to make those notifications. We're also going to continue to do the good old-fashioned door-to-door notifications. And several sheriffs across the northern part of the state have implemented the use of high-low sirens. And those are sirens that are equipped on our vehicles that sound different than your traditional traffic control sirens. They sound more like the European-style sirens. And what those are designed is to give an audible indication that evacuations are in progress. So if you hear that, it's time to look around, tune in, and figure out what's going on, and it means it's time to leave. A lot of the other lessons surround, what are the limitations of some of these systems? One of the things that we also learned is that there is no single system that is capable of reaching everybody instantaneously in the event of an emergency. Redundant systems, different systems that have different capabilities are the best bet for reaching as many people as quickly as possible. So with that, if you have your cell phone, make sure you're signed up for those emergency alerts through your local jurisdiction. If you have your landline, make sure it's registered with your local Office of Emergency Services or Sheriff's Office or PG&E or Fire Services. If you live in a remote area where those things aren't available, you need to figure out some other ways to be aware. Maybe have connections with some of your neighbors or people that are in communities with reception and rely on them. As Sheriff Kendall mentioned, know your neighbors. We do that. We do that in public safety. We know, I work closely with Sheriff Kendall and Sheriff Allman before him. I work closely with Chief Gonzalez and Chief Jones during these fires. Do the same. You as civilians, do the same. Take care of each other. We take care of each other, and that's one of the best things you can do. Having a plan. The importance of having a plan. If you don't have a plan today's not the time. Yesterday was the time. You need to get a plan now. And your plan needs to be tailored to your individual situation. There's no one-size-fits-all plan. Everybody has unique needs. Everybody lives in a different area. Everybody needs to know their evacuation routes, and everybody needs to identify what things are irreplaceable. When you talk about those types of things, vital records, your driver's license, your Social Security card, people think those are essential. Those can be replaced. Think about things that can't. Pictures of loved ones, memorabilia, keepsake, and have that stuff ready before a fire breaks out. Running around your home when the flames are licking at your back door is not the time to get that done. And I've gone over my 3 minutes, but I want to close with another thank you to Senator McGuire for putting this together and allowing us to speak with the people we serve.
Sheriff, thank you so much. We're grateful for your hard work and grateful that you joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be getting to your questions and comments in just a few moments. But before we do, we're going to be turning it over to Matt Pinder. Matt Pinder focuses on the Community Wildfire Safety Program and wildfire planning for Pacific Gas and Electric. He's going to be focusing on power shutoffs and upgrades to the PG&E system through hardening as well as fire prevention and vegetation management. Mr. Pinder, the floor is yours. You have 3 minutes. Thank you for joining us. I'll give you a 30-second prompt.
Yes, thank you, Senator, for having me this evening. We really appreciate this venue to get in contact with our customers and the citizens of Lake and Mendocino counties. So this is a really difficult time for a lot of people, a lot of unique circumstances going on with COVID and what that means for our lives. And PG&E appreciates that and is very focused on supporting all of you with electric service through this time. Our field crews have been out in the field performing wildfire risk reduction work and PSPS mitigation work throughout this time. We have been essential workers the entire pandemic, and we really appreciate that hard work and dedication of our crews who continue to get the work done to make our communities safer and to make our system stronger. So we learned a lot of lessons from the 2019 PSPS season. We learned and we know that we need to communicate better. We need to partner better with cities and counties and telecom providers, the cell phone companies, et cetera. And we learned that we can do better. We know we can from a lot of the things we learned last year. And so as we look at this year's wildfire season, number one, we've taken a lot of work. We've done a lot of asset upgrades and vegetation work to make our system safer throughout wildfire season, throughout the whole year. We've done over 80 miles of enhanced vegetation management work in these two counties. We've got 8 miles of system hardening work where we're replacing older overhead conductors, that is wires, with new hardened assets. And we continue to make our system safer in that way. We've also added a number of weather stations and high-definition cameras in these two counties as well as across our system to help us understand what the weather is like and what the conditions on the ground are at all times. We've got 30 weather stations in Mendocino County and 20 in Lake County. But as we talk about PSPS and what an immense impact that has on people's lives when we need to take that decision to turn off power, we're focused this year on making it smaller, shorter, and smarter. So smarter means having our website work. We know that it failed last year, and we've upgraded to an entirely new system there. Having our customer alerts be more informative so that you know from the first notification approximately when the power will go off and approximately when it will come back on. Also smaller. We've installed sectionalizing devices. We've got 20 going into Mendocino County, 11 in Lake, to make the grid easier to cut up into smaller bits so that only the people who really need to be turned off because of high risk will be turned off. And then lastly, making them shorter in duration. How can we make them last as short a time as possible? We've nearly doubled the number of helicopters we have to help us inspect our lines more quickly once we get the weather has cleared and we're able to do that. We're also setting up 2 aircraft with infrared cameras that allow us to inspect our lines at night. So we really expect this year's PSPS season to be different, for the events themselves to be smaller than they were last year and not last as long. And our support for our customers has increased as well. So happy to take any questions on all that, but PG&E is looking to execute an entirely different and better system in 2020 than what many of you experienced in 2019.
Thank you so much. That's Matt Pinder from Pacific Gas and Electric talking to us about expectations related to potential power shutoffs this year. We're going to get to your questions now, and I got to tell you, I'm sitting here with Carrie, who's working with us, and we are getting inundated with questions. Thank you so much. If you'd like to be able to get your question or comment in, please hit us up now, senator.mcguire@senate.ca.gov. Get your questions and comments in. We look forward to hearing from you. Let's get right to it. This is coming in from Richard. We're going to go to Chief Jones, then Chief Gonzalez. Going to ask our panelists to better keep their answers to about 30 to 60 seconds because we have dozens of questions to get to tonight. All right, Chief Jones. Chief Jones is the CAL FIRE Unit Chief from Sonoma Lake, Napa. How does the pandemic complicate efforts to prepare for wildfires? This is coming in from Richard in Lake County. How does the pandemic complicate efforts to prepare for wildfires? Let's go to Chief Jones and then Chief Gonzalez. Chief Jones.
Thank you. Luckily or unlucky, we have a panel of subject matter experts that have been working with the local medical directors on advising for each of our counties of what we need to do. We are prepared. Our incidents will look different if we do have a large fire where we invite others from outside of the county to help us, and we are prepared to provide social distancing at our centers and all of our base camps, but it is a little bit different, but we are prepared.
Thank you so much, Chief Jones. Let's go to Chief Gonzalez. Same question.
Thank you, Senator. Chief Jones stated it well. In addition to what she stated, we're still training every single day. We're still being proactive. We still take every day as aggressive as we can in the sense of training and prevention efforts. None of this has changed. The only thing that has changed is under the public health director per county, we are increasing our social distancing. We are increasing our hygiene practices, and we are being proactive as far as incident basis. If a large fire does occur, our plan is to have additional base camps and watch briefings virtually and use technology to its best capability in order for us to get our messages out. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Jones. We're now going to be going to Matt Pinder from PG&E. This next question is coming in to us from the coast out in Mendocino County, out in Manchester. It comes from Dave. Matt, here's Dave's question. Has PG&E completed a survey of electric infrastructure that may be at risk for igniting a fire and put together a schedule for remedies to be applied? 30 to 60 seconds. Matt Pinder, PG&E, looking at that assessment in Lake and Mendocino County. Matt?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Thank you. Yes, in 2019, PG&E did an enhanced inspection of every one of our assets that are in the high fire threat districts. So that's the areas where the CPUC has identified the biggest risk for utility-related wildfires. So every single asset that's in high fire threat district was assessed in 2019, enhanced inspection, and that created a number of corrective actions, many of which we've already completed, some of which are still being scheduled and executed. And that also informed our prioritization of where there are assets that might need to be replaced or repaired or things like that. So yes is the short answer. We have assessed all of those assets in the last approximately 18 months.
Thank you so much, Matt. So, Matt, I think another assessment is on those power shutoffs. You're looking at putting a schedule together to be able to make improvements, vegetation management, grid hardening over the next few years, correct, in Lake and Mendocino County?
Yes, we have our scope of assets that we'll be addressing through all of those things you mentioned, hardening the lines, installing sectionalizing devices, and vegetation management. We have that prioritized across our system, including in these two counties.
Thank you so much. We're going to be sticking with Chief Jones. Chief Jones, this is coming in from Louise in Cloverdale. Chief Jones, Louise wants to know, do you feel confident that CAL FIRE is better equipped this year to handle fast-moving, wind-driven blazes? What is better, and what do you still need? That's coming in from Cloverdale and Louise. Chief Jones.
Thank you. I believe that CAL FIRE is better equipped this year. CAL FIRE, as Senator McGuire indicated, is receiving additional personnel and equipment to assist us with suppressing fires. As always, we're preparing for the unexpected and the worst-case scenario. We could not do that without the help of our local cooperators and all agencies. Even on this call, the sheriff and PG&E working collectively together to mitigate the fire. So I do believe that we are prepared, but our goal is still 95% of fires, 10 acres or less, and that is always going to be our role, and we're always going to be prepared. But we hope that we can continue to do that. Thank you.
Chief Jones, thank you so much. We're now going to go to Lake County Sheriff Brian Martin. This is coming in from Joni. Sheriff Martin, Joni understands what evacuation warnings mean and evacuation orders, but what does shelter-in-place mean regarding fires? How is that going to work this year, Sheriff Martin?
So the shelter-in-place order will be given if you're in an area where we don't feel that the fire is going. A lot of these wind-driven fires, the weather patterns are predictable, and the CAL FIRE personnel are really experts on predicting where fires might go. So the shelter-in-place is designed to limit the amount of traffic that's out there. You won't be given a shelter-in-place order unless they're very confident that you're safe and we don't want you out and about and disrupting fire efforts. So the shelter-in-place is you go indoors, you shut and lock your windows, and prepare to self-sustain until further notice or until you're contacted by emergency personnel for additional direction.
Thank you so much, Sheriff Martin. This next question is going to be coming Sheriff Kendall from Mendocino County. This one is coming in from Margot from Yorkville. Margot's concerned that there were some communication challenges during the recent Yorkville fire, and some neighbors not getting notifications. Sheriff Kendall, can you address that regarding the Yorkville fire?
I can. I'd encourage Margot and anybody out in those small corners where we have trouble getting, cell signal and things like that, go to the Mendo Alert, do your best to get registered there, and then you should be able to sign up for the emails and whatnot also. And then, of course, we're using those high-low sirens. And one of the things that happens is anytime that we have a big fire that breaks, we immediately send law enforcement out to partner up with the incident commander, and then he starts moving these vehicles out with the loud sirens and things like that. That's very helpful in a lot of these kind of out of the way areas where cell phones don't work quite as well.
Sheriff, thank you so much. And does the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office also use a 911, reverse 911 to landlines as well?
Yes, we also use that reverse 911 along with iPause, Nixle, Everbridge, and the social media stuff.
Thank you so much, Sheriff. We're now going to be going to Chief Jones. Chief Jones, this is coming in specifically for you from Kira. Kira wants to know, can Chief Jones please answer, are we still going to have the very important help from convicts this year or not?
So we still have inmate crews in Lake County. We have Canocti Conservation Camp, and we do have crews. However, the number of inmate crews has been reduced throughout the state. Many things have taken place, including an early release by Governor Newsom, which has affected our inmate population numbers, but we are augmenting with other sources such as firefighter hand crews throughout the state with the additional firefighters that Senator McGuire was talking about. So those things are happening throughout. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Jones. We're now going to be heading to Anderson Springs. This one is coming in for Sheriff Martin. It's coming in from Janice. Janice wants to know, Sheriff, is there anything that is being done to give folks in Anderson Springs a warning should receive Nixle and then switch to the Lake County system, although she hasn't received any alerts, of fire coming in her direction or of fire in the county? Can you address that question from Janice from Anderson Springs, Sheriff Martin?
Sure. The same alert systems are available in Anderson Springs, are available throughout the county through Lake Co Alerts. Additionally, the South Lake County Fire Protection District implemented a reactivated one of the sirens down there. So we implemented, we did a test run with the siren last month and found out that it wasn't working, so I'm glad that we did that. But the vendor has come out and made some repairs, and I believe on this coming week there should be another, on Monday we're going to have another siren test activation. So she should listen up for that, check out for the local news, and make sure that she can hear that siren when the test occurs. But as always, we encourage people to sign up for the Lake Co Alerts, the Nixle, the Everbridge. It's available on our website. It's free of charge. And also we'll be implementing, if it's appropriate, we'll issue a wireless emergency alert through iPause as well.
Thank you so much, Sheriff. We are getting a lot of questions to Senator.McGuire at senate.ca.gov about the Mount Canocti Firewatch Tower. This one is coming in from Pamela. Pamela lives in Clear Lake, Oak Keys. Thank you, Pamela, for your question. This is going to Chief Jones, the Lake County Unit Chief. Chief Jones, what is the status of the Mount Canocti Firewatch Tower rapid response project and the repairs necessary for the spotters to utilize the tower? Chief Jones, Lake County Unit Chief.
So thank you for the question. As you may be aware, Pamela, the tower was shut down in October of last year due to the structural integrity. We have evaluated the tower, and unfortunately at this time, we will not be rebuilding or fixing it. So the time frame for its rebuild is really unknown at this time. The money, as you know, the state is going through a reduction in budget due to COVID-19, and so our monies are being directed elsewhere into our stations and equipment to get responders to the incidents faster. I will tell you that we are very fortunate to have a relationship with the Forest Fire Lookout Association, and they are continuing to volunteer to be on top of Mount Canocti, not utilizing the tower, but are doing lookout for us on top of the mountain. In addition, alertwildfire.org is a website where many fire cameras have been placed throughout the state with help of PG&E and other sources of funding. We are able to monitor fires from those cameras in our command centers. And there is one at the top of Mount Canocti, which has been extremely beneficial and helps with the couple between Forest Fire's Lookout Association and the cameras has been critical for us. Thank you.
Chief Jones, Lake County Unit Chief, will you address that lesson learned from 2015? Would you say Lake County is better served with cameras now in 2020 than we were in 2015 with the Valley Fire?
I believe that the cameras are definitely an additional and welcome tool to the fleet of already great resources that we have in Lake County. It is not a replacement for the Forest Fire Lookout Association volunteers, but it is definitely a complement, and it does help us. And I believe that, yes, we are better prepared than we were in 2015.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Chief Gonzalez. Same question. Have the cameras assisted you and your team at CAL FIRE through the Mendocino CAL FIRE unit spotting fires earlier? Do you see improvement since 2015, Chief Gonzalez?
Absolutely. Every single day, with the technology increasing, we're seeing improvements statewide as far as CAL FIRE and with the technology programs. And we do have cameras within the county. We have been utilizing them, and they have been very, very helpful. Currently, none of our lookouts are staffed. There's some structural integrity issues with most of them, but they're still utilized as communications towers. As Chief Jones stated earlier, it takes every piece to make a puzzle. Cameras are one piece of it, and we're utilizing it to its fullest extent, and it is helping us out. Great improvement over 2015.
Thank you. That's Chief Gonzalez, Mendocino Unit Chief for CAL FIRE. We are still about 1,000 folks strong on the line for our Fire Preparedness Town Hall. We're now going to be turning it over to Sheriff Matt Kendall from Mendocino County. This next question is about fireworks, Sheriff. Sheriff Kendall, we are getting over a dozen questions from folks since the July 4th holiday about concern of fireworks and fires. And Lydia wants to know, Lydia's from Fort Bragg, what can we do about illegal fireworks being used locally out on the coast? Sheriff Kendall.
Well, fireworks have been a problem in Mendocino County for numerous years, and a lot of it is due to the time that they're used. Now, fireworks are illegal in Mendocino County. I don't want to see anybody with them. There is nothing safe about them in the least. We have a lot of trouble with resources in getting to the location where those fireworks are at. Now, one of the issues that we have is currently we've got a lot of things on our plate, not a lot of deputies to get them done with, and we have to prioritize our resources, especially during times like these. If we can deal with them, we will absolutely deal with them. But many times, by the time that we have a unit responding to the location, the event is over with. And so we'll continue to work on it. We'll continue to do our best to keep a lid on things. But a lot of it has to do with geography.
Thank you so much. That's Sheriff Kendall from Mendocino County. We're now going to be going to PG&E and Mr. Pinder. Mr. Pinder, this next question is coming in from Dawn in Hopland. She wants to know, what is the plan for power shutoffs this year? Why isn't PG&E required to replace transformers that seem to be the cause of the wildfires? So talk about that, Mr. Pinder, about transformers and the cause of wildfires in Mendocino and Lake County and what the strategy is for PG&E.
Yeah, appreciate the question. So fires can be caused, as it relates to utility lines, a number of ways. The most common is actually vegetation. So trees, limbs blowing into our lines during these high wind events and sometimes knocking the lines down, sometimes not even damaging our equipment, but if they touch two lines, it can drop a spark, it can ignite the branch itself, or the wind or the vegetation causing damage to our equipment, which could be a transformer or it could just be the wire itself. And so there are a number of risk factors when the winds really kick up, particularly on hot, dry days. And so PSPS remains a necessary tool, sort of our last line of defense during those conditions. As I mentioned earlier, we have assessed all of our equipment and inspected it in the last 18 months, and we're replacing or repairing those things that are deficient or have a problem. But transformers is not the only challenge and the only driver of why we do need to have PSPS to prevent these catastrophic fire events.
We're going to stick with Mr. Pinder. This next question is coming in from Denny. Denny lives in Willits. Will generators be placed at substations to keep our lights on this year? And then he asks, where will those generators be placed? So it seems like Denny knows that PG&E is going to be putting in generators to keep substations powered up during potential power shutoff. Mr. Pender, why don't you explain that and how that's going to work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, that is a strategy that we're executing this year. There are 10 substations in Mendocino County and 5 in Lake where we are set up to execute this year. So what we will do is if the transmission lines that bring power to that substation have to be turned off for safety, we can put generators at the substation to provide the electricity that we can then provide to all the customers who are safe to energize, the customers who are not in high fire threat areas or who may be in a high fire threat area, but there isn't the wind. It's not a high risk time for them. So again, there's 15 total across those your two counties here. And the exact ones that we will be providing substation generators to depends on the circumstances of that event. If the transmission lines can still serve, we won't need them. And if all of the customers served by that substation are experiencing a high wind event or live in a high fire threat district, there may be no one who is safe to energize. So it will be very situation specific, but the total is up to 15 if that's necessary.
So, Mr. Pender, just doing a little bit of a deeper dive on this. So these substations that you'll keep energized, which will literally keep the lights on, will they be mostly focused on incorporated communities like cities in both Mendocino and Lake County?
Not necessarily. They're all over the place. So we've got them on the coast, Fort Bragg, Point Arena. Maybe this question came from Willett. Willett substation is one of the substations. Kelseyville, Lakeport. So it's a number of communities throughout these two counties and then throughout our system as well.
Thank you so much. That's Matt Pender, PG&E, talking about substations and making sure that they have generators to keep the lights on this year. We're now going to be turning our attention to Kelseyville. This is coming in for Sheriff Martin. Sheriff Martin, Wendy evacuated 2 years ago and was in the Kelseyville High School gym. She wants to know how are evacuation centers going to be different with the coronavirus. Sheriff Martin, and we'll also ask our CAL FIRE chiefs to be able to chime in on this one, on evacuation centers and the coronavirus. Sheriff Martin.
Yeah, this has been a topic of discussion amongst our mass care and shelter housing groups in response to the coronavirus. We recognize that it's probably going to be very different until there's either a herd immunity or some kind of vaccination that's available for coronavirus. So the shelters are going to look much different. There's going to be social distancing requirements placed in there, which means we're probably going to have additional sheltering locations, which means we're going to have additional staffing. So it's going to be very challenging. One of the other things that will be noticeably different is that Red Cross run shelters will not be allowing animals into the shelters. So they're going to be sheltered or kenneled in outside facilities and not allowed inside as they had been in times past. Obviously, masking orders are going to be enforced and required for anybody that enters the facility, as well as enhanced cleaning stations and sanitation operations. So, yes, it's probably going to look quite a bit different than it has in years past due to the coronavirus.
Let's go over to Mendocino County, check in with Sheriff Kendall. What is it going to look like in Mendocino County with social distancing and potential evacuation centers? Sheriff Kendall.
There's going to be masking, there's going to be screening at the door, and there's going to be more social distancing. So I know that Health and Human Services is already working on a lot of these different things and finding the areas where it's going to be more suitable to have that good social distancing. And so we can expect that anybody who would come in would receive basically a real quick medical check to make sure that they aren't exhibiting any symptoms. And then, more locations to get done will provide a greater social distancing altogether.
Thank you so much. Chief Gonzalez, any thoughts on this about evacuation centers?
I think Sheriff Kendall, Sheriff Martin described it accurately. I think the success this year is going to be a smaller amount of people within the shelters, a lot more self-monitoring, hygiene practices, and just social distancing, but it's going to be more centers with less people in it.
Thank you so much. That's Chief Gonzalez. Chief, we're going to be sticking with you. Chief Gonzalez is runs the Mendocino unit for CAL FIRE. This is coming in from Greg in Hopland. Here's what Greg has to say. Knowing that the 2020 prescribed burn schedule was curtailed by the COVID situation, Chief, he's asking, what is the outlook for 2021 prescribed burns in vegetation management, looking forward to a proactive, safer future? So let's get that answer for Greg. Question from Hopland.
I want to thank Greg for throwing the VMP process out there. So far, our biggest VMP efforts have been in the Lake and Mendocino counties. For us, the COVID hasn't necessarily stopped the VMP process. It just takes a little bit of ingenuity to continue it forward. So a lot of the processes were still carried out. We still met our goal, including the governor's executive order for completing mandated projects. But I think as we go forward to 2021, we're going to start to see a lot more social distancing. We're going to do a lot more remote communications through email and or Zoom or any product like that to communicate. And we'll still continue our efforts. And I think one of the successes within the department is to continue these efforts, both chipping, burning, or mechanical fuel reduction.
So Chief Gonzalez, just following up on that, so have prescribed burns been curtailed for the year in Mendocino County?
They have, not due to COVID, but they absolutely have due to weather.
So 30 seconds, Chief, why don't you tell us why weather plays as a factor for prescribed burns? Just go into it, 30 seconds, please.
Our goal is to reduce the fuel loading within the forest beds and the ground. And if you do it too late in the winter, the fire intensity picks up and starts to burn everything 100% versus a low-intensity fire that rejuvenates and is natural.
Got it. Thank you so much, Chief Gonzalez, Unit Chief there in Mendocino County for CAL FIRE. We're going to go to Sheriff Kendall. Sheriff, we're hearing from Eric in Fort Bragg. This is a specific question for you. Is there a plan to parallel emergency communications to ham radio groups such as MAX, which is the Mendocino Auxiliary Communication Services? So why don't you give us a little bit of background on the Mendocino Auxiliary Communication Services, Sheriff Kendall, and then talk to us about how they play into emergency management.
Well, that's an excellent question. We have those in hospitals. We have them in schools. They're kind of a redundant system, and we use a lot of it for putting together different types of communications. And it's a good backup system, especially if we're losing power or we're having problems here and there. We've also got a lot of volunteer groups that we can reach out to get that redundancy in communication. It's hospitals, schools, locations like that, and you know it's an excellent form of communication that probably hasn't been used enough.
Sheriff Kendall, thank you so much. We're now going to be going to Chief Jones. Chief Jones oversees CAL FIRE for Lake, Napa, and Sonoma County. This one is coming in from Kira. Why are our firefighters being isolated because positive COVID-19 test results? If they're not sick, does that mean that they're always going to be isolated via CAL FIRE? Can you answer Kira's question, Chief Jones?
Absolutely. So we are, as I mentioned earlier, we have a group of subject matter experts that have been working with each of our counties that we serve and talking to the medical directors in regards to their wishes in terms of how we operate. And so we are relying upon their medical expertise. And like many of you know, if firefighters are work together almost like a home unit in your home, so your family members, and so we are working together and trying to provide fire protection, but trying to limit the amount of exposure our firefighters have to other firefighters that do the same work. So we are working collectively with everyone to get the fires controlled, but also provide the same social distancing. So it's a little different for us this year, but we are providing that social distancing and taking care of our folks. Hopefully that answered the question.
Thank you so much. We're going to keep this going. We're going to go to Chief Gonzalez. Chief Gonzalez, David is emailing in from Philo asking why the two northern CAL FIRE stations had a brownout or temporarily closed because of a coronavirus situation. Why were they closed? If you can please update us on those two stations in northern Mendocino County.
Absolutely, Senator. And the stations were closed as a proactive measure under the direction of the county health director. There was a positive case that came in, and upon testing others, there was other people that tested positive for the coronavirus. In a proactive attempt to contain it and to keep it as small as possible, we were able to test all personnel involved and close the stations. Although it did not compromise any firefighting ability, we actually hired an additional helicopter and we had engines on patrol throughout the area. We just wanted to take a proactive measure to make sure there was no other positive cases. With that being said, similar to what Chief Jones stated earlier, our goal is to help people. We don't want people to be ill and or go on a medical aid or a vehicle accident and possibly get other people ill. So we take aggressive measures in order to prevent any sort of spread.
And when do you anticipate those stations being back open, Chief?
They are open as of tonight. I believe 7 o'clock tonight was the 72-hour time frame.
That's good news. Thank you so much, Chief. That's Chief Gonzalez, Mendocino CAL FIRE Unit. We're now going to be going to Matt Pender. We have a few minutes left. Get your last-minute questions or comments in at senator.mcguire@senate.ca.gov. We're getting to your emails. I want to say thank you. We've had dozens of emails come in today. This is coming in from Anita in Philo. She's asking, Matt Pender from PG&E, how do we get PG&E old poles and fuses that are outdated and unsafe replaced? Who should Anita contact? Mr. Pender, what specific number should Anita call or email address to be on outdated poles and fuses?
Yeah, so anyone can call our general number, 800 PG&E 5000, and if you report a potentially unsafe situation, our call center will create a case that will be investigated. But for something like this that might be wildfire related, we have a dedicated email address, wildfiresafety@pge.com. Again, wildfiresafety@pge.com. And our team will look into that. We have a program to assess and replace fuses and other pole equipment that may be outdated or may be at risk of throwing off a spark during operations. And so we take actions to mitigate that risk. We trim the vegetation at the bottom of those poles. And then we do have a program where we're replacing hundreds of those each year. But if she has a specific location or specific question, wildfiresafety@pge.com, and someone will respond within one business day.
All right, Anita's going to be hitting you up, Matt, so watch out. Thank you so much, Anita from Philo. We're getting a lot of questions tonight from Cloverdale, and this one is going to Chief Jones. We have a couple minutes left. Chief, this has to do with aerial support for Northern California. Joe from Cloverdale wants to know if CAL FIRE has the 10 or 12 jet air tankers and how quickly they can be utilized in the event of a large fire. So let's take a 30,000-foot view, Chief. Talk to us about which airports have bombers to be able to operate, whether it's Mendocino, Lake, or Sonoma. How quickly can they be on a fire? And then how does mutual aid work with other airplanes throughout other airports in Northern California? Chief Jones, CAL FIRE.
Okay, so that was a loaded question. Luckily in Sonoma County, we have the Sonoma Air Attack Base, and we have 2 tankers and 1 air attack. We also have another air base in Ukiah in Mendocino unit. So both operations can be out the door very quickly if an incident is reported. So our entire fleet in California is very robust. We hire the very large air tanker and have that on contract throughout the summertime, along with having the capability of hiring additional helicopters call when needed helicopters, and have really the ability to access the fleet from many places throughout the world. In high fire danger times, or during like the 2017 fires, the number of aircraft that we had overhead and assigned to the incidents was, I can't even remember the number, but it far exceeded our fleet as CAL FIRE. So we have those cooperation agreements in place that allow us the ability to access additional aircraft when needed in the event that we have in some type of emergency. We also have helicopters, our helicopter fleet in Mendocino unit at Howard Forest, and also at Boggs Helitack. So a very large fleet available to us.
Thank you so much. That's Chief Jones. She oversees CAL FIRE in Lake Napa as well as Sonoma. We're now going to be heading over to Kelseyville once again. This is coming in Jan and Gordon. I'll start with the sheriff, Sheriff Martin. We may need to go to Chief Jones. Sheriff, we may need to follow up on this. So Jan and Gordon are extremely concerned about the serious fire conditions on Point Lakeview Road from the end of the Riviera out to where it connects with Highway 29. Jan and Gordon are asking who is responsible for what, quote, should be severe fire control all along the road and up into the hills above and also below it down to the lake. So this is coming in from Jan and Gordon in Kelseyville. Sheriff, do you know who's responsible for that vegetation management along the road?
Yeah, so along the edge of the county highways, it should be the county roads department that's responsible for that. There's all kinds of different property ownership out there. Individual property owners are, of course, responsible for vegetation management on their own property, and that is a very concerning area. As much of Lake County that has burned over the last 5 years, that's one area where it hasn't yet been directly impacted. So the roads out there, anybody that doesn't live in the area may not be familiar with it, but the roads are very narrow. The ingress and egress out of those is very challenging, and it makes it that much more important for people that reside in that area to have that plan that we spoke about earlier, and make sure that and make sure that your own homes are protected as well as possible.
Thank you so much, Sheriff. This next question is going to be split between the sheriff as well as Chief Jones. Coming from a retired firefighter in Sonoma County, is coming in from Teal, who also lives in Kelseyville now. Chief Jones, how can Teal let first responders know that his ranch is defendable? Can he place a placard on his driveway? How do you communicate with rural landowners about defendable ranches?
So I would strongly suggest that the individual, I'm sorry I missed his name, can reach out to me or the local battalion chief in Lake County. So I'm not sure where he lives specifically. I think you said Kelseyville.
Yes.
So he can reach out to the local battalion chief, and they can do a walkthrough of his property and have those discussions face-to-face. I strongly encourage that. He can come into any of our stations and talk with our folks, and for area orientation, we'd be more than happy to go out to his property and take a look and have those conversations.
All right, so Teal is going to be calling Chief Jones. He's a retired Healdsburg firefighter, now living in Kelseyville. Thank you so much, Teal. Good to hear from you tonight. Thank you, Chief Jones. We're going to go to the last question coming in for Chief Kendall, or Sheriff Kendall here tonight. Sheriff, again, can you reiterate that fireworks are illegal? We're getting a lot of questions coming in tonight about fireworks in Mendocino County. You want to reiterate, Sheriff, exactly where the county stands in fireworks, and we'll go to Sheriff Martin as well.
Yeah, fireworks are illegal in Mendocino County. The fact of the matter is they're covered under Mendocino County Code. There's also, depending on how much people are in possession of, they're covered under the Penal Code. They're not safe, and I don't care where you're setting them off. There's just too much wind, too much dry vegetation, too much to be concerned with. They're not worth it.
Thank you so much. Sheriff Martin, your comment on fireworks. We're now up to 21 questions on fireworks tonight. You want to comment on fireworks in Lake County?
Absolutely. Well, the city of Lakeport, within the city limits of Lakeport, is one of the very few jurisdictions that allow the use of safe and sane fireworks. Those safe and sane fireworks are the fireworks that bear the state fire marshal seal of, I don't know if it's seal of approval, but the state fire marshal seal showing that they're available. And a lot of the concern comes with, particularly on 4th of July and around the holidays, that or New Year's Eve, where fireworks become very prevalent. And you might call for law enforcement. It might take us a while to get there. Just remember that just like CAL FIRE can't necessarily have a piece of fire apparatus in everybody's front yard, we sometimes aren't able to send our limited resources out in a timely enough manner to catch people while they're still in the act. I encourage people to continue to call. We'll continue with the messaging that they are, in most cases, illegal anywhere in the unincorporated areas of Lake County, and urge caution if people use them where they're lawfully permitted.
Thank you so much, Sheriff Martin. We're going to finish up with two final questions for Sheriff Martin and Sheriff Kindle. This has to do with the issue of sirens. So, Sheriff Martin, there's been a lot of conversation in Lake County about installing and hardwiring sirens on light poles and utility poles. Know that it can't be done all throughout the county. Why don't you talk about the alternative that you've launched in regards to high-low sirens on emergency vehicles, explain how that works, and then also talk about hardwire sirens placed in the neighborhoods. We'll go to Sheriff Kindle to close us out on that as well. Then we're going to ask for closing comments from each of our panelists. Sheriff Martin, you get the final word on this issue, and then we'll go to Sheriff Kindle.
Sure. The big tower sirens that used to be in place in a lot of the fire stations used to be in use quite a bit. I know during the 70s and 80s as a means of communication. Somewhere along the line, I'm sure residents probably didn't appreciate hearing them. But with the fires in 2015 and the terrain issues that limit the ability for cell phone signals to get out to people, or even people living in remote locations where they may not even have landline service or radio connectivity, we're exploring the options of the different ways of getting a hold of people, and those fire sirens became one of the focal points of people's efforts. So a lot of those efforts have been dedicated to installing sirens in various areas. They still have limitations because of terrain features. They can't, necessarily go over and around mountains and reach people. But as far as the high-low sirens that are installed in our vehicles, it's simply a matter of programming the siren on how to be used and educating the public that when you hear that European-style siren, that means there's an evacuation in progress. If the deputies are going through neighborhoods, they're using their public address, their loudspeaker system to announce those evacuations so they can hopefully reach a bunch of people, and they're combining that with the high-low siren. So it's all about education and being alert and aware in your surroundings.
How many sheriff vehicles do you now have outfitted with those high-lows?
All of them.
That's incredible. Thank you so much, Sheriff Martin. Let's go to Sheriff Kindle. Hardwired sirens on telephone poles and electric poles, and then talk about the high-low sirens in Mendocino County. Then we're going to go to our fire chiefs for closing comments along with the rest of our panel. Sheriff Kindle, you get the last word tonight.
Well, thank you. I never get it at home. However, so we have several, we have 4 hardwired sirens over on the coast. Those are used only for tsunamis. However, many of our local fire departments have those sirens, and the fire chiefs are the ones who are in charge of setting those off. If you hear the high-low siren coming from our patrol cars, and just like Lake County, 100% of our patrol cars are equipped with that European high-low siren. If you hear that, it should be a warning to instantly tune in, figure out what's going on. You may hear it at a distance, and the fact of the matter is that's even better, because you know that we're not right in your neighborhood, and it will give you more time. And so tune in. I don't care if it's via radio, if it's via Facebook, if it's via social media, or any of those platforms. If you hear that siren, there's going to be additional information coming soon.
Thank you so much, Sheriff Kindle. That's our last word from questions and comments. We want to say thank you to the 1,000 folks from both Mendocino and Lake counties that tuned in tonight for our Wildfire Preparedness Town Hall. We're going to go to Chief Jones. Quick closing comment, Chief Jones, before we adjourn.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I do appreciate the opportunity, and thank you to my partners. I have a couple quick things. Please have a plan in place Be ready to evacuate when you're asked to do so, and please do it orderly and don't hesitate to evacuate. Help us help you, and for everything, if you haven't taken anything to heart tonight, please visit readyforwildfire.org. There's so many tips and tricks there for you as a homeowner. I can't tell you all the things there. They are super important to you for home hardening and everything that you can do to help us help you. Thank you, and be safe.
Thank you so much, Chief Jones. She does a hell of a job for Lake, Mendocino, Lake, Napa, and Sonoma counties for CAL FIRE. Thank you so much. Speaking of Mendocino, let's turn it over to Chief Gonzalez. Final word from you, sir.
Thank you for putting all this together, Senator. I appreciate it. And to my partners, thank you for the assistance. If I have a closing statement, it would be it's time to take action. California has changed. Fires have changed. It's time for us to get caught up with the times and take action. Be proactive, multiple escape routes, pre-plans, and as Chief Jones stated earlier, please go to readyforwildfire.org. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chief Gonzalez oversees all CAL FIRE operations in Mendocino County. Matt Pender, PG&E, final word, please.
Yeah, thank you for having us this evening as part of this panel. Really important conversation. If people have more questions or would like more information on what PG&E is doing to prepare and execute through wildfire season, encourage them to go to pge.com/wildfire safety. A lot more information there, and you can also contact us directly with any questions. So thanks again, and let's all be safe.
Thank you so much. Sheriff Kendall, final comment.
I just wanted to thank everyone who put this together and everybody who called in. Many hands make for light work. We're all responsible to help out ourselves, our neighbors, our friends, and in these small communities, these small counties where we don't have a lot of people, we always do better because we're accustomed to looking out for each other. So all in it together, let's all work hard together. Let's make ourselves as resilient and dependable as we possibly can be. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sheriff Martin, final comment, sir.
Hey, the great thing about going last is I don't have to think of anything really smart to say. Everybody said it. I want to thank my my coworkers, my peers that are on this panel, and just echo what they had to say about taking care of each other. Help us, help you. We don't do this alone. None of us do this alone. We do it with the help and support of our community. And a final thank you to you, Senator McGuire, for hosting this town hall.
Thank you so much, Sheriff. We want to say thank you to Sheriff Martin, Sheriff Kendall, Chief Jones, Chief Gonzalez, and Mr. Pender from PG&E. We have several questions that we were unable to get to tonight. We just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to be able to participate with over 1,000 strong on our town hall. We couldn't be more grateful that you tuned in this evening. We're going to be posting an audio file of tonight's town hall on our website as well as on our Facebook. We'll also be providing that to Sheriff Kendall and Sheriff Martin to be able to post as well. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Mendocino Lake County telephone town hall on wildfire preparedness. Stay safe, wear a mask. We look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you for joining. We're now going to be adjourning this wildfire preparedness town hall.